Hello, everyone, and welcome back to You Have to Wear Something. We are so lucky to have another amazing guest on the show. I love to interview women of color, underrepresented groups, and Sonia Smith-Kang is probably all of them. She checks a lot of boxes. Sonia Smith-Kang is here with us today. She is the founder of Mixed Up Clothing. It is a children's clothing brand that she saw that there wasn't enough representation in the industry, especially multicultural, like blending Black and African American and Afro Latino. And Sonia is even married to a Korean American. Tell us a little bit about your background, Sonia, and welcome to You Have to Wear Something.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here and providing a platform for brands like myself. I am Sonia Smith-Kang, and I am the founder and designer of Mixed Up Clothing. I like to just kind of start with who I am. I'm African American and Mexican American. I'm a proud military brat who was born on the island of Puerto Rico, and then my family moved and we were stationed on the Hawaiian island of Oahu. Now that I'm on the mainland of Los Angeles, I'm married to my husband, who, as you mentioned, is Korean American. We live a very intentional life here in Los Angeles, bringing our cultures, languages, foods, music all together. And one thing that I did notice in dressing my children in their custom, wayoeras or their Korean hanboks, was the amount of pride that, not only they had when they wore them during kind of ceremonial special occasions, but also us as parents and as family members, kind of poising them for photos and whatnot. I really wanted to emulate that feeling for them in a everyday sort of way. And so, as someone who has sewn since seventh grade, I used it as a stress reliever as a critical care registered nurse. Um, so I found fabrics that kind of represented our cultures, whether it was mud cloth or ankara or fabric that had piñatas or whatever it was. I would just kind of turn them into fun dresses, tops, bottoms, diaper covers, whatever it was. Um, and I realized that whether it was at the park or at the grocery store line, that folks were like, "Hey, what is that fabric?" And oh, that looks similar to, name, of this. And oh my goodness, I remember my grandmother had this, or, and I realized the clothing was an entry point, a fun way to talk about your culture, my culture, uh, us as a collective, as a whole. And so I I loved it. And I loved that the clothes could be more than just clothes. And they could be, a way in celebrating and a way of giving pride and strength. So I started a clothing line. I transitioned from being a critical care nurse to starting what I have now with the clothing line.
I imagine with that pride, are your kids trilingual? Like, do they speak all the
Yes.
languages? What
Yeah,
languages do
they're
they
definitely
speak?
multilingual. Again, and that's part of that intentional
Yeah.
way that we live. We made sure that they went to dual language school here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And so we're very, excited about that and proud that they were able to do Korean language school um, as well. And so I helped with the Spanish, and then school and their appa helped with Korean. So, yeah, definitely. made a point. If I took you on a tour of my home, you would see little post-its in different languages,
Oh, wow.
for TV or refrigerator or whatever it is. Just to kind of, um, we call it culture proofing in our house. We call,
Mhm.
the same way families child proof or elder proof their home to
Yeah.
safeguard, for safety. We call it culture proofing, where we safeguard their identity and help promote, the strength that comes from that.
I love that because I think in this country, in this very interesting time, um, at first it was about assimilation. And then there was a shift culturally where it's like, no, actually, I want my kids to speak our native language. I want them to, I mean, they're just more competitive and more whole and more interesting and smart and all of that if they have those different influences. So I think we're getting away from like a linear assimilation in America.
Yeah,
Uh,
I love that. I love that you said that, Nicole. I think that when talking to my grandparents, and in the time that I was even raised, when I came from Hawaii to California, um, they being society, wanted us to kind of uh, to assimilate and to, it was this myth of a melting pot where all the different cultures went in and then came out as American or whatever it was. And we're learning now that, we don't have to do that anymore. And I'm on one part, I'm very sad for my grandparents and that generation that felt the need to have to leave that at the door, you know.
mhm.
And so I think what we're doing now and during this time is a form of resistance. It's a form of, living out loud and authenticity. And also it's it's just that sense of, take me as I am, and reclaiming what was lost. And I think it's a great time. I think it's a, um it's just, I know there's a lot happening in the world, but I think one thing that we can count on is, the strength that comes from, loving who you are and digging into your roots and your history and seeing what your folks have, your ancestors and your aunts and uncles and all of them have gone through to get us to this point.
Yeah, you can't leave it behind. Like you can like blend all of it, but leaving it behind is definitely like not the vibe and tradition anymore. Tell me about going from the idea. I think that's the part that people struggle. Like they have a secure job, they have a great idea like you had. Did you start by making clothes for your kids first and as a hobby and then made the transition? Tell us a little bit about like that's a little bit scary to make the jump from like, okay, I have health insurance, I have a secure job. I mean, we need nurses forever. I know people leaving their jobs to become nurses. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And, I think there was a couple of things in there that I think in that I love talking about. It's that founder journey, right? It's that when did you know that you could actually turn a hobby into a business? And for me, it was about, again, that conversation, folks, finding interest in it, starting off at farmers markets, making a couple for friends and taking orders, and then maybe making a little Etsy store, all while working. And then, uh, you know, uh, that kind of taking on a life of its own. And it was challenging because my family and in talking with more founders, um, you know, they want you to have this 9 to 5, this, get a job with the government, get a
Yeah.
federal job, whatever it was. Like, have a 401k. Like, that was the
Ability, be
dream.
stable.
Yes. You
Yeah.
got health care. You are,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
That's it.
that's
Like you
it. Like,
said.
right. And mind you, I loved it. I loved nursing. I still use it every day. I got 4
Mhm.
kids. There is always something happening, but I also use, what I learned, critical thinking.
Mhm.
I've learned to triage, my business, what am I gonna do first? Prioritizing, delegating, all those are nursing processes that I
Yeah.
still use in the business. So when my family learned that I was going to leave nursing, there was definitely that fear that stepping out on faith, and
Yeah.
that I I admittedly, I had to wait a little bit longer to share with them, because that wasn't something they understood.
Yeah.
And it was the fear that might have been speaking. And what I heard was, um, maybe that lack of support that I needed.
Mhm.
So when I talk about my founder story and my journey, I always kind of talk about trying to find your inner, your why. And because some of that is going to be what you have to rely on, and what you have to, like, there's something more. I call it like chasing the mission instead of chasing the money,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of time when you don't have the money, when you're a solo founder who is trying to pitch to boutiques, and they don't look like you, and you're trying to pitch to big retailers who the buyers don't look like you. I mean, that you have
This
to
is every industry, but what you're saying is
correct.
correct. And you,
Yeah.
all those other boxes, like you being multicultural, mixed race, being a woman. Also, like, did you have venture capital? Did you go and pitch to, like, you know what I mean? What is it,
Yeah.
Valley funded and all that?
Yeah.
Like, even go through that. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's
So
that's
definitely was self-funded for a lot. Like I said, I mentioned the 401k that we get as nurses, or whether depending on, you could do a 403b, whatever it was.
Mhm.
So definitely maxed out some cards. And this is not to say it's the right way. I'm just sharing what I did.
Yes.
And I was very interested in um, not doing that anymore. So, what were ways that I could get funding? So, that was accelerators, it
Mm.
was grants. So, I take time. I'm still grant writing. Um, uh, so it was participating in pitch competitions. So there was a lot of ways. Fashion used to be one of those, VC backable kind of industries, and but the margins are so challenging,
Mm.
that you have to figure out, like, who is your target investors. So maybe that's more angel investing, or investors, and those that are kind of focused on the mission of, women owned, minority owned, brands,
Yeah.
impact brands. So definitely the work has been, challenging to find those folks. Uh, but the climate in the past, post George Floyd, post racial reckoning, there was a good amount of time where you saw it. I
Oh,
don't know what the environment is
absolutely.
going to be now,
Yeah.
but uh, definitely feel like, find your community, and just keep pitching.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely, it's always like a little voice inside of you, especially if you have an idea. I read a lot of founder stories and they say, don't get out of here, don't let your song die inside of you, things like that. To listen to that. And even if it is small, don't be afraid of small. We don't need like a big fancy office right away, or do it until it outweighs your job, right? But
Exactly.
there's no one way to become what you're trying to become and answer
Right.
that call.
I love that.
Yeah. So tell me about that first win that you had. Maybe it was an accelerator where you were like, this is a company, I got it, I'm on my way.
Yeah, I would definitely say that moment was, you know, with the workshop at Macy's is a
Mm.
accelerator, if you will. When I pitched to them, um, you know, coming from a nursing background, I I had that imposter syndrome where I was like, "What am I doing? Filling out this application?" Um, you know, but when I got approved for the first step, and I was like, "Okay, she knows something." And so
Yeah.
then they flew us out to New York. I interviewed, and then they were like, "Wow, what a great story! Let's get you in." And so I went through the process, and they taught me how to, uh, craft the pitch,
Yeah.
and present to folks. Again, going back to uh, what is it that sparks the interest in folks that don't necessarily look like you or understand why products like mixed up clothing, or the Fenties of the world, or the Risso's curls that are for or for textured hair, like why that's necessary,
Yeah.
right? So maybe a part of it was speaking the language that would get the interest. Um, and although the onus is on you, and you're like, oh, why do I have to, show all these statistics and all this, that, some other brand or some other company has an idea and they just put it on a napkin and they get funded, the
Yeah. You have to show
hoops.
all the data and all of that. Prove,
Yes.
improve, and overprove.
Yes.
Overshow. Yeah.
Overprove. Yes.
Yeah.
Of why, we need books in different languages. Why, you know what I mean? So getting rid of all that, and the time came with at Macy's where I was in front of the buyers and some celebrity folks like Carol's daughter, Lisa Price, and all
Mm,
these
love
folks. And
her.
yeah, and they were like, tell us, get rid of your cards, get rid of this, and just talk to us.
Mhm.
And so that moment of, yes, let's pursue this. Let's get you into the store, and figure out, what that means. So I think that was that first time where I was like allowing myself to now exhale and believe, you know, that this could be something more than just, the song in my head, to your point, or the song in my heart,
Mhm.
as it is. That this could be something that not only would benefit my family and families that look like me. There were folks who were very value, centered, and wanted to, learn about others. So tapping into that. So the time was definitely right. And then they also helped me get, certification, and finding folks to surround myself with that understood.
Yeah. And like, you know, children's clothing is different too because it's like it has to be like not flammable. And I see a lot of Okotex, on the textiles so that it's like not toxic and things like that. So, but it is tough with clothing. I've been in and out of different, versions of the industry of essentially you have to get it produced affordably and then you have a margin to worry about. So, tell me about production and like finding where to produce it. I mean, was that a journey? Was that rough? Was that tough?
I mean, I don't know if it's not. I mean, like, you see me, I'm just like shaking, because it is definitely, a learning curve. I posted, to talk about the flammability of clothes, and so I get that as a nurse. I want to make sure that the products that I stand behind are safe.
Yeah.
The dyes, the chemicals, all
Yeah.
those things. So that is very much top of mind, and that costs. And so um, again, I went from sewing myself to finding small batch here in Los Angeles to then having that part where you're uh, going um, from at home and hobby to now business and making sure everything's the same. And so now you're scaling. And it took me outside of the US at that
Yeah.
because when I spoke with my community of folks, and I would post, for instance, an outfit, and I would say, "How much would you guys pay for something like this?" They were comparing it to the major retailers of the world that were offering two of them for my one.
Yeah.
So having to balance, um, those kind of things has been a challenge, and it's still a challenge because you want quality products. Um, and at the, so this was before, but now we're at a time where fast fashion is
I was
rampant.
going to ask you about
And yeah, and so again, we try to educate our consumer in, in the amount of, we talk about number of washes of our clothes, number of times you could wear it. So that's our kind of currency that we use. And so we try to get them to say, if this item is $50 and you could get 50, uses or washes out of it, that's $1 per, use, right?
that.
So versus other brands that maybe perhaps, one time you wear it and then it ends up in landfill because of the products
Overseas
that,
too. Like we're kind of
yes,
exporting this stuff, and it's a huge problem. Like I guess
correct.
fashion's supposed to be like the number two polluter outside of gas and oil and petroleum. But yeah,
You got it.
I always tell people that the fast fashion, it does come at a cost. Like it's a reason it's cheaper. Maybe the dye has a little bit more in it. So yeah, there are tons of like, yeah, how do you feel about that? Like the different companies that are like, we're all organic, we're so clean, we're so clean. And then our community, sometimes we can't, maybe afford the uber organic baby brand, right? So I'm sure you're kind of in the middle of that.
Yeah, and I want to just, when I talk about it, I kind of go back to growing up. I always say that we're we're used to it. Like we're used to those kind of things where it's we used to hang our clothes outside if we didn't have a dryer, or we had hand me downs from our cousins or older siblings. I don't think I ever wore clothes that fit me. Like they had a hem that could be brought down. So I think
Yeah.
what I try to do is, again, take folks on that journey of, we've been doing this. Like we're masters of circularity and sustainability, just as a community. So I try to tap into that, and then I also try to come in at different price points.
Hmm.
My I know who my shopper is. So there's the part that's the realist, and then there's the part that is the aspirational. And so I come in, and I'm like, are you, my target folks? Are you the, midway? Then I'll give you, an extra, it'll be this with an extra print, or add some ruffles to it,
Yeah.
that with the price changing. So I don't ever want to forget where I came from, and I want to make sure that there's opportunities at every level to come in and purchase mixed up clothing, whether it's a graphic tee that you pick up at the end of your checkout, that says, M is for mofongo, or,
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
on our t-shirts and whatnot. So just making sure that every person could kind of grab a piece.
Yeah. Those little add-ons, they always get you at the register, but they're
That's
too
what exactly. You're
they're
like,
too
do
cheap
I
to
need this
pass
extra
up.
chapstick? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so it's going. You're doing this. How long has have you been full time with mixed up clothing, and what's really working really well at this point?
Yeah, so this is, I would say, 2016, uh, was definitely that kind of time where I was still on a learning curve,
Yeah.
making tons of mistakes. And then, the, pandemic hit, and, uh, learning to quickly pivot as we all did. And, again, coming from a nursing background, I was like, ooh, I know how to wear a mask. Let me, you
Yeah.
know, uh, and, I had one at home, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
so I was one of the first in Los Angeles to pivot to masks, and because, who better than to design one than, an RN. And so, and then, the timing I mentioned, so I think, I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes. And going back to the pandemic, uh, because I was manufacturing overseas, you know,
Mm,
who's making your stuff? How's it going to get here? Who's
everything
manning the
makes sense.
freight? You know what I mean? It completely stopped.
Yeah.
And but yet you're working with large retailers who are like, I know, but you said, like, I'm gonna have,
Yeah.
2,000 pieces coming up. So,
Yeah.
it really, was, again, a trying time for us all, and it required some, definitely, communication skills, and really just being honest, with folks, and kind of managing expectations. So I love to say, it's been the last maybe 5 years that I've finally feel like,
We're
"Okay, yeah,
flying here.
she's
Yeah.
something, she's doing something," yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And, yeah, so I would say that.
Um, Tell me about, because you're an entrepreneur, so you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot even as a nurse before you even became a founder. But what was like one good lesson, like one failure you were like, okay, I learned that was didn't feel good, but I'm glad that I experienced that.
Yeah, there's nothing more than losing money that gets you to, quickly be like, "This is," so so I had my clothes held, uh for lack of a better term, like, it was just held ransom.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it
oh
was like,
no.
unless you put in an order, we're not going to give you like what you already paid for, kind of thing.
Oh, they were holding your
And
order kind of
y-
hostage a little bit.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And
Shoot.
and I bring that up because it still hurts. Like, losing money is just, um and so the lesson I learned was, really knowing, and it goes back to, circularity. It's really about knowing your manufacturers, visiting, traceability is huge, like who's making your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, and uh, getting attorneys to sign off on things, and
Mm-hmm.
having an organization that I belong to, that advocates for emerging Black and Brown founders, that say, "Hey, here's some resources. Um, here's an attorney who focuses on fashion or beauty, those kind of things. Get them to look at your documents. Get them to help craft a boilerplate, contract with influencers or whoever it is." Really taking the time to, um, have that ready in the beginning, I think that was my biggest lesson was, yes, it is expensive. Yes, you could download, from whatever website, uh, but the investment in the beginning and upfront will help, hopefully in what you're doing, and help mitigate some of those things that you're chasing at the end.
So, did you end up having to pay the ransom
Oh no,
to
it's
get?
gone. It's gone. Oh yeah. No,
Okay.
when I tell you when I tell you the lesson, uh
Uh,
yeah, it is, yeah. So having to go without a collection, and for
aw,
that season, so it taught me, the value of time, and again, having things set and played out, and knowing, and not just taking folks at their word, or hope.
just trust.
I
Yeah.
hope it works.
Yeah, I
No.
got you. They stole your stuff. I'm so sorry. Oh
Yeah, me
my
too.
God.
Thank you.
Oh my God. I know. See, some people is you really got to be resilient. I mean, you get to feel all the feels, but you also kind of have to keep going. It's really tough. And
It
you have
is.
other stuff. You're a wife and a mother, and you got all these other things going on too, in addition to running your business. Which brings me to how do you do it all? Because you have four. I mean, four in 2024 is a lot. You're a very brave woman.
Yeah, I try really hard. So I think, I try to make it as relatable. So if I could just share, the
Yes.
same way that you make a business plan,
Hmm.
we have a family plan, and we talk about, what kind of parents we want to be. We had this conversation even, pre-kids with my husband. What kind of parents do we, I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be a mother. I knew even as a registered nurse that, the feeling I had when I missed events, or birthdays, because of course, weekends, nurse, we had to be on. So
Yeah.
I there's things that are non-negotiables. I try to be at their events, and they're, be there for them. So that means sometimes, having dinner or breakfast for dinner. It means sometimes, um having to watch for a little while and not being able to join the after the game win at the pizza place, because I got to now go and catch up on 2 hours of Zooms or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So for me, I do not stick to a hard and fast rule. And I think, listening to some folks, everybody's like, wake up at 6 and get an exercise. And
I
I
mean, if you listen to like Rich Rollers, that's all they talk about is like get up at 5 a.m., meditate, and
right,
then go for a run. And then it's
right,
like, what?
yeah. Yeah, and I really did in the beginning. I tried. When I tell you, it was like I got my new outfit. I was my Hoka shoes, like I was ready. She was gonna hike and do all this stuff, but I found, like, I'm not a morning person.
Yeah. Good. I see
Would
that.
rather run in, a t-shirt and some leggings. So those kind of things, not being tied to a schedule, has really helped me.
Yeah.
I prioritize, things and events. And, we have a family chat where we have a group calendar. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, for us, that works.
Yeah.
So my only suggestion is, you know, giving yourself, the opportunity to kind of talk it through, and make, changes on the go, and on, I also, if I may, I my mother, as a single mom, raised us three kids, with the help of my grandparents. And I used to see her, and she was like always made up. She, went to work, she came back, there was food on the table, and I wanted to live up to that.
Yeah.
And I felt like a failure when I didn't. And so in talking with her, she was like, I had help. And she was like, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Like, going through this in struggling and just so that you can say like I did it all just is for the birds. Like,
Yeah.
so my kids know to meet a friend on their team that can help with carpool. You know, I utilize now my mom, who I'm like, look, I can't pick up, Ava, can you go run her out this way? Um, just really pushing back on the superwoman, or um, has really helped me
Yeah,
to
being
kind of
honest
just say,
about needing
yeah,
help and it being a lot. 'Cause I think when we go to like TED Talks or we go to these South by Southwest, you hear like a lot of honestly men, saying like, "Oh, I do all of this in the morning," and it's like that company. You had help building that company. They speak like it's just me, and I did it. I did it on my own, and you can do it too. And they don't talk about you know, maybe they're not the primary parent or, things like that. So it's easy when you have a ton of help and like speak on that help. Like tell us how you got help.
yeah,
But yeah, no one is doing anything without help. I mean, I I worked at Tesla and he takes credit for there's probably like 2,000, you know, eggheads,
sure, yeah,
brilliant people doing all of that stuff,
sure,
and you have, like, this one person
yeah,
taking credit, and that happens all the time. It should be a more transparent founder, story,
yeah.
but
And
yeah,
again,
no,
I
being
think
a
I
superwoman.
think our community, we uh, talks black and brown communities talk about, it takes a village. And I remember, my aunts taking part in raising us and
Yeah,
having us, there on the weekends or whatever it was, just really going back to that and just saying, the same way we led this conversation with pushing back on assimilation, push back on what it means and who's saying that. Like, make that your own, make that your own family way, your own individual way. Again, for me, um it is, who do I want to be, and really get there as quick as possible.
mhm.
Get to make all those mistakes, figure out like, ooh, I didn't like when I was this, or again, I'm not a morning person. I will be sending emails out at whatever time, reading emails, and just knowing that that's okay too. That path
Yeah,
is okay. And again, I was there on these TED Talks going, oh my God, I must wake up, do this and do that. And when it didn't work, it was back to that same feeling of something must be wrong with me.
yeah,
Why can't I get it? And why can't I, and really just saying, you know, throw out the rule book. And I use also the analogy of my kids. Each one is different. And these kids had to fall asleep in the car, or and I have parents that are like, no, we must leave because they got a nap time or whatever it is.
yeah,
And I'm like, okay, again, it's finding out who you are and
yeah,
what makes you your best you, and try to
their
get
own
there as quick as
rhythm.
possible.
Yeah, I see that with the communities. It's like community has always been a part of it. I would introduce my cousin and, I would have, you know, non-black people be like, is that your real cousin? Because any of the children that we're around are our cousin. You know what
Ah,
I'm
that
saying?
is right.
We're all
Yes,
cousins, you know what I mean?
that's right.
Neighbor is my auntie, and I have my actual auntie helping out, and I
Yeah,
think community is where we come from, and then we enter. I think the predominant kind of vibe sometimes in America is to be an individualism, be an individual, a singular vision. And it's like, our families have always been like that,
correct. Yeah,
like we see grandma and auntie often. This is not someone that we just see once a year,
right.
you know?
Yeah. And really, again, it's It is. It's all of that. It's really just um giving yourself permission to just, you know, at times throw your hands up and just be like, I need, you know, to just cry it out or do whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I do. And again, that's why I say chase the mission and not the money, because it's that mission that is going to get you to get back up again and,
Mhm.
get you to, you know, ask, the team mom if they can run your kid out to practice or bring them home. It's all of that. So, that's just the way I do it. And so I'm more of I got ideas, I got, what I need to do, I prioritize, and I just keep tick box. And that's how I get through.
I was just listening to the story of Fawn Weaver, who
Yeah.
is the founder of Uncle Nearest, and is the first, I don't know, Black woman-owned spirit to reach $1 billion, which makes her like that unicorn status. But she talks about her husband, and she talks about, you know, choosing well when you want to do this kind of work, when you want to be a founder, when you have ideas, and having the like right partner by your side, whether you're going to have a big family or a small family or even just dogs. Like, she's like, you have to, if you have dreams, you're going to need help. So do yourself a favor and choose well. And it's like, she was being so honest. She's saying when you go on that date, you know that that person's not your partner, and but sometimes we don't listen to our gut, you know. And when she met her husband, she's like, "This is him." This is before Uncle Nearest was even a thing, and so I imagine that you have great partnership, and you know, if you had not chose well, that would make all of this a lot more difficult.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you say dogs, because I'm hearing my
Oh, you got a dog too.
yeah, 4 kids and dogs. Yeah.
Okay.
So I will say, um, again, I think that is part of that learn quickly. I love that story, and I've heard her tell that story. And it was one of the things that I shared with my own husband, is that, um, this, the same way that we had our conversation about how we wanted to, rear the children and those kind of things. And,
Yeah.
um, he married a nurse. Like
Yeah.
so I switched, flipped up the script from him, and like, we were both uh okay, and the kids are going to turn this, and again, that rigid kind of, plan that we had. And then all of a sudden I was like, ooh, I want to foster that creative side of me, I want to be a founder. So all of this, again, was conversations that needed to be had. And so I, and I didn't start out with, the him just jumping on board. And like, he was like, "Wait, you're what?" And and we're gonna have to, so there was definitely like conversations that had to be had. And that our home was going to be turned into the warehouse, right? That,
Yes.
um and our kids were going to be part of the shipping process and fulfillment process. And he just left for UPS to drop off,
Yeah.
the orders. Like, you know, this train is moving, and I hope you're on board with me. I need you to, I need your help, I need your support.
Mhm.
But she's moving forward
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah. You're
So,
like, I'm making the stuff. I'm
yeah,
making
like I need you to, yeah, get on board quickly, because we're moving. And again, it's those life lessons that say, try to be as honest and open and vulnerable. I think vulnerability is underrated. It's not talked about. Just the same way I've shared, I've tried to be as transparent as possible. And um, And, I don't have all the answers. I'm just sharing my experiences and hoping, maybe if somebody grabs a part of it that can help reassure somebody. And, whether you have a husband or a wife or a partner or whatever it is, a
Yeah.
best friend, these are all relationships that I think the messaging and the overarching theme is communication and trying to be as honest with yourself and your team and your kids and your family, whatever it is,
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna try this thing. I know what that feels like when it's like nipping at you. Like I gotta try to do it at least a little bit, even if it's just to kind of get it out of your system, But yeah, I understand creatives deal with that all the time. And speaking of like where it's going, I saw that you had some pretty good milestones. You're in Nordstrom now. You're in Target. Tell us about where mixed up clothing is going. Like it's because it's going.
It is going. I again, that's is part of relationship building. Folks are like, it looks amazing on paper. I used one to, Macy's to like say, hey, here's the, proof that it can make it here, and I talked about the different uh uh folks coming in, the entry point. So whether they're at a target.com, Macy's.com, Nordstrom, whatever level, there's something for you for with mixed up clothing. I mentioned, the folks that I look for, whether it's the black and brown owned cosmetic line or hair care line,
Mhm.
um, you talked about the spirits, the beverages, the tequila lines, all those. I want to
All of
be a
that.
household name. I
Yeah.
really want that to be like, I wanna do collabs with the Mattels of the world and get a doll that, has textured hair and that maybe has our clothing on it.
Mm.
Maybe, little so and so tells the story of how um, culture, about all those things. Like I want to do partnerships. I want there to be, a Coco or a Princess Tiana doll or whatever it is. Like I just
Yeah.
want. I do not want. I love that big brands and corporations are hiring us, but to do that for them, I would
Mhm.
love to see more of the collaboration. Put me on Vans
Mhm.
and let me put like a little print on there, or Adidas, or the same way they partner with the Pharrells and the
Yeah.
Beyoncés. Come for the other guys that are emerging, and
Mhm.
let us uh help, bring light to our communities in a way that you know elevates both brands. So that's what's next for me, is really reaching out and kind of figuring out what that looks like. um, I would love to make fabrics, and so that's, those are the wish list on the side as we continue to move and get into more, open up more doors with big retailers, and get into more boutiques.
Yeah, me, being a little bit in having a, I've tell people I've sold everything except for houses and weapons. I literally am the consummate salesperson.
Love it.
We would be on here for hours, but thinking about even interiors like kids' rooms, children's rooms, like even like a poof or something that they could buy for their like, now kids are even like meditating. They have brain time. They have
Love.
brain off time. So yeah, I'm just thinking about all the little things when people would want to decorate their kids' rooms and want it to be
Yeah.
vibrant and want it to be even custom. You think about the Chrissy Teigens and all of those people of the world who really are looking for something unique and one of a kind. I think there's a ton of space for that because it hasn't been that for so long. You are
Yeah.
disrupting, you're actually disrupting, and it's not easy. Like you said, like you're still, it's 2024, you're still pitching the rooms that don't look like us. So we have
Yeah.
a ton of work to do. We have
Yeah.
lots to pursue. And you're, I wanted to mention too that you also are a speaker on DEI. You know, I don't know if you have a book or anything like that, but that type of literature, even for kids, is like so needed because I don't think people know quite how to speak sometimes to the younger folks about what does inclusivity really mean, where we all feel good and we all feel proud. So
You know, that is, I thank you for nudging me on that, and it was very kind to like, yeah, that's definitely. I have been talking about culture, I mean, since middle school when I was like, you know, and I'm dating myself because there was a sea of blonde hair, blue eyes, and there I was with my, tight curly hair. It's not, I mean, she got her hair done and blowed
yeah,
out, but
I'm blown out
uh
too. I mean,
yeah,
this is an afro. This is an afro trying to get out, but
yeah,
for the
yeah,
sake of
it
me,
is
this is
right.
fast this week. But
You're
yeah,
so funny. But yeah, so definitely if we were on another episode and you're like, wait, she's her hair is the yeah. So I've been talking about not fitting into boxes and I wasn't black enough for some spaces, wasn't Mexican enough for some spaces. So I've been talking about it for a long time, and so I speak a lot, whether it's in from elementary school during multicultural day at the kids school to teaching institutions, the USC's, UCLA's of the
yeah,
world, and with media, just really again leaning into who you are, and finding that power to tell that story. I think we need to hear more stories, and I do have a children's book, Pitch, and
ooh,
it kind of talks about the idea of the potluck of and again like the family table, and this little kid goes to all the different houses and they teach him how to cook something, and he grabs something from every culture that he goes to, and he's preparing like a stew. So he grabs like the saffron from his friend, and over here the cilantro and all this stuff. So he's collecting and learning about the cultures. And I think for me, I share that in that I want to learn, and I want to ask questions, and I want to hear all about you,
yeah,
and that is apparent in kind of what I think folks are hoping and moving towards, um, and I talk about that resistance of having to go into a pot and come out something else, that um, you know you're good alone, and as alone and together. Um, so yeah, I think that's definitely on the horizon. Um, so anybody listening, she needs a book, she needs a public, those kind of things.
yeah.
So
So it's public speaker to speak because I think it does. We went through this time of like learning how to be anti-racist and about anti-blackness, and then about um, this BIPOC pot and then POC pot. And then, how do those intersect all those different identities? Because it's a lot of times it's assumed that like POCs are all together, but it's not the case all the time. You've got gender, you've got LGBTQAI plus in there. There's things that differentiate. And sometimes you got to kind of pull those identities out and look at those singularly to relate to the other ones. So the work is not easy. I have been in companies where they really try to do this blanket DEI program like all POC, and it's like that's not going to work either. You have to really recognize the different cultures that make up sometimes even one person like yourself, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I lead with um I am black, and I lead with that because just history, right?
Hmm.
Um and so when I'm sitting at something when they're like minority section or whatever it is, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, that includes women, and they're
Yes.
like, wait, you could so yes, so parsing that out and kind of um seeing that and addressing that, I think is very much very important, to distinguish that. um I try to talk in ands, so I'm black and then and
Mm.
those kind of things, but knowing that we're not a monolith, and getting those, even within the Latin community, we see over and over again, depending regionally, what they assume, East Coast versus West Coast, predominant this or that. And
Yes.
we get it all. I mean, again, um, and I think that's why the storytelling is so important, to get folks to understand that we don't all vote the same. We don't all, you know what I mean? Like, we don't
Yeah.
all ride the same for one another.
Yeah.
You know, you talked in the beginning about vibing. We don't all vibe the same, so
No.
it's
Yeah.
definitely, it's part of that, uh yeah, just knowing that, you know and even what is all skin folk and kin folk, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's
It's
just
just the way that
realizing that.
yeah, and you just gotta kinda, like, push through and, no matter, like, kinda what's going on, it's these conversations are so needed. I think a lot of people were using it as, like, a box checker, and it's like, these are people's lives, and these are our lives that have been going on for centuries, thousands
Yeah,
of years,
yeah,
right? That people
yeah.
are, like, kind of catching up to. But fashion is such a love for me. I'm in and out of it all the time. I was actually I think I don't know how I found you, but I remember now through folklore. Um,
Yes. Oh,
yes,
huge
I
shout
found you
out.
through folklore. Yeah, such a great mission.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yes. So, if I may, yeah, there, again, we talked about just finding folks, and that's exactly why, right? Folklore put me on. They were like, look, we only have adult ready to wear, women's wear, housewear. Do you want to, be part of when we come up with kids wear? And I'm like, absolutely. So again, getting out there when when you're not working on your pitch, when you're not working with your kid, you're trying to find organizations that support you. There's the 15% pledge.
Yes, I've heard of that.
There's
Aurora is
again,
doing
the
great work.
folklore Aurora, yes.
Yeah.
And it's really just kind of saying, uh, again, that vibe, find the folks that you mesh with, that you vibe with, that are like, look, um, once you tell your story, what is it that you can bring? Bring, you know, tell them about the folklore, tell them about the 15% pledge, talk to the big retailers and say, are you part of the pledge? And educating them. And I've been really fortunate to find amazing folks like Aurora and Amira, and to put me on, and to, really wrap me with their support, and I've been thankful. So
Yeah, no, more is just more. A former like colleague of mine, she used to say we go up together. And it's just so true. And there's just still so much work to do. I am so thankful you were on here to speak to me. I found your story so interesting and empowering. And I know it's not easy. Like we're really big into empowering now, but no one talks about the work it takes to be empowered, But I'm already following you on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. But how can folks support Mixed Up Clothing, find you, or if they're just out and they want to find you accidentally, like how do we support Mixed Up Clothing?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again for having me. You can find me at Mixed Up Clothing. That's on all the different social channels. I just created my first. Is it Blue Sky? Blue.
Yes, people are leaving Twitter for Blue Sky, and I
Yeah,
swear I've heard more about it in 48 hours. These things move so quickly. I didn't even know
yeah.
what Blue Sky
Yeah.
was.
So find me at Mix Up Clothing on Blue Sky. Yeah. They are getting 1 million or so followers every day. And then of course Threads is jumping off there.
Yep.
So Mixed Up Clothing throughout the channels. And then, LinkedIn, I always want to hear from folks. So Sonia at Mixed Up Clothing is my or my email, and mixedupclothing.com. Pretty simple out there. Here to support. And if there's anything I can do to be of service, I want to do that as well and extend that to folks.
Thank you for being an open book too and a support system, because there's also a lot of that, like sometimes when people like they make it and then they kick the ladder down, you never hear from them again. You know what I mean? So thank you for also being like a mentor, a teacher. All the things you're doing
Yeah,
are
yeah,
valuable, and we
yeah.
need that.
And that comes again from being, comfortable and being honest and transparent with where
Yeah.
you are. And yeah, and really just, yeah, setting the intention to send the elevator to go grab some more folks. So yeah, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time and
Thank
a
you.
wonderful chat. And I guess we'll see you next time on You Have to Wear Something.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.